This is a student support video for Sports Coaching Assignment 1, the conclusion section. This section has two sections in total. Section 1 will be the larger section, about 1,000 words, and Section 2 will be a summary section and a personal development plan, which will be about 300 to 400 words. Essentially, the conclusion section will aim to draw upon all the review logs that you've completed during the year, plus reflecting on your mentoring experience, in the first section, to demonstrate a systematic understanding of the key drivers. Here, the PEST framework is a framework I'd like you to consider using, and the overall objective is to identify whether the coach development pathways that are currently in place will be fit for purpose moving forward. To answer this question, consider the following issues. Much like the sports facilities assignment 1 conclusion, I'm looking you to make an assessment of how you see the sector developing moving forward. Which subsectors will be dominant? So, for example, will sport continue to be the key driver for sport and leisure over the next 30, 40, 50 years? Or will we see an increasing rise in fitness or adventure-based activities and facilities? So I'd like you to have that discussion. I'd like you to also consider whether the public, not-for-profit or private, as you did with facilities, but I'd like you to specifically focus in on which subsector you feel will be the most dominant. Give clear reasons why, using academic research, not just from the review logs that you've considered for this assignment, but from all the research that you've looked at this year. So in terms of staff recruitment and development, I'd like you to consider a PEST analysis approach. What political shifts are there likely to be in terms of policies, government strategies, legal frameworks do you think that may influence? In terms of social, again, like the facilities, I'd like you to consider, in terms of staff development, what types of customers or participants we're likely to see more of over the next 30, 40, 50 years, and justify why you think that may affect staff development. In terms of the economic, are we seeing a transition from public to private? If so, and we're becoming far more market focused, are we likely to see different types of skills and knowledge required for our workforce? For example, will they need to become more entrepreneurial in their mindset, or will they have to become more creative in generating solutions for customers? In terms of technology, I don't want you to talk about hardware. And again, this is about reflecting back on the workforce. I'd like you to consider, in a training program and workforce development plans, are we doing enough to develop 21st century skills in the sport and leisure workforce? What sort of mediums will they be working in? For example, social media, and what will technology potentially look like over the next 2 or 3 decades, and what sort of skills training might we need to be embedding in our workforce development plans? Based on all those discussions, the development of the subsectors, the key drivers for staff recruitment and development, the final element of this section will be to critique the coaching frameworks and the fitness frameworks, and really answer some key questions. Are the coaching frameworks in place going far enough at the moment? Are they too focused on technical training requirements and don't consider the wider skill development for staff that you may have outlined and discussed? Are they too focused on producing a workforce that will develop elite athletes? So I'd like you to critique the coaching framework, identifying its strengths moving forward or its weaknesses, and offer some alternatives or some additions that you may feel the coaching framework needs to consider. So again, we're really talking about considering a macro environment analysis, and I want you to consider, so the macro environment is focusing on the past, but I also want you to make key decisions on how you feel the industry is moving forward in terms of staff and workforce development. Your past, your key drivers, and the scenarios that you identify will all need to be supported by key references consistently throughout, as you have been doing for your review logs. The ideas and arguments can be as diverse as you want them to be, as long as you feel that you have a reliable and valid source to support your ideas. Again, consider and critique the references that you're using. If you're using web-based references and they're not industry or government sources, then you may question the validity of those references. If you're using media sources, again, consider whether they're the most valid sources to support your arguments. Certainly look at books and journal articles, but consider the dates and the depth of resources that you're using. So again, we're having this discussion of whether we feel the sports and leisure workforce moving forward will be predominantly in public, not-for-profit or private. I'd like you to consider where you feel the industry is moving, what part of the spectrum. It might be more this end of the spectrum or this end of the spectrum. I want you to consider, though, the impacts on staff, the development needs, the workforce needs, and the overall skill set, not just technical qualifications they may need, but overall skills based on the environments they may be working in. So if they're more market-driven, more entrepreneurial, more commercially focused, will there be a difference to broader state funding where the impetus to profit maximise isn't as great? Section 2 is a small section based on the information that you would have completed in that first section for the conclusion. Plus, I want you to reflect on your experiences as a mentor this year. This isn't a critique of the mentoring process. I want you to consider, with all the people that you've worked with, and looking at the first year group as a whole, can we come up with an overall general skills statement for the group? Where do you feel, based on the competencies that you were looking at and their current levels of development, are there skills gaps based on the information you've identified in section 1 here? So technical qualifications, 21st century skills, as well as delivery and coaching skills. Are they going to be developing in the right areas? So certain skills gaps that you might feel have been identified, again, support some of your ideas with references, and qualification gaps you may feel that exist within the group. Or certainly that in terms of that review, I'd like you to start off with a reflective piece looking at the current general skills, any gaps, the qualification gaps, and then based on your review and research plus the review logs, I'd like you to come up with a generic skills and qualification action plan for the entire year group, first year group, as they move forward into the second year. So what areas you feel that they should be developing and why, and consider again the soft skills as well as the technical qualifications that need to be put in place. All the reviews here will be based on some of your observations and reflections as a mentor, plus your review and research and ideas of how the industry is moving forward. All these articles, ideas need to be referenced. If you'd like to attach an appendices of examples of qualifications, then please do so. Include reference lists throughout.